The Xbox Series S is the cheapest it's ever been. Is Hogwarts Legacy coming sooner than you think? And what's going on with Halo Infinite? Let's discuss. So everyone always makes a big deal about the AAA games that are on Game Pass, but I have been on an indie game kick, and I just want to highlight a few that are on Game Pass that you can play right now as part of your subscription. First up is The Outer Wilds, not to be confused with The Outer Worlds, The Outer Wilds. The Outer Wilds was on Game Pass in the past, and then it got taken off, and now it is back. It is a first-person, kind of open-world exploratory game that takes place in a solar system that is stuck in a time loop. It's a really awesome premise. The map is always changing, and that's all I could really say about it without spoiling too much about what the game is about. I highly recommend that you check it out for yourself. Then there's Gang Beasts. I love playing this game with my friends because it's just hilarious and anything could happen. It's kind of like a physics-based fighter, and that makes it sound more serious than it is, but really you're just kind of these floppy like Play-Doh people trying to throw each other off the map and punch each other. The controls are super hard to learn, but once you get the hang of it, there's some really interesting things that you can do in the game, and the environments, all the different levels and stuff are really crazy. You'll be playing a level and all of a sudden this sea monster will pop up and try to grab you and take you away, or you'll be playing on this elevator that is constantly moving. It's crazy, I love it. Another indie title I'd have to recommend is Nobody Saves the World. Now this is made by the same people who made Guacamelee, and how it starts out is that you are a nobody. You are just this blob, shell, pathetic little person, and you come across this magical wand that can change you into all sorts of different forms. The first form is a rat, but after that, the game opens up to all these different transformations. You can transform into a guard, a horse, a dragon, a necromancer. You can transform into a big buff bodybuilder. All have their own unique abilities, and you have to utilize them to make your way through the different levels. I love the art design of this. It kind of reminds me of old school Cartoon Network stuff like Billy and Mandy, that era of Cartoon Network. It has those vibes, and overall it's just hilarious character design. The abilities are super fun. Highly recommend that you check it out. This next game is made by a studio that's grown pretty big at this point. It has, I think, over 900 employees last time I checked, but it's still technically an indie studio. They're the guys that made Dead by Daylight. And this game, it's been around since 2016, but it's still going strong. It garners a ton of viewers on Twitch, and for good reason. The basic premise of this game is amazing. You play as either a killer or as the victim or the heroes trying to escape the killer. And it's just this really exciting experience, especially if you are not the killer trying to escape the killer, because I just love these games where you don't really have any special powers to kind of get you out of jail free. You kind of have to figure it out, use your wits, work with your team in order to escape these slashers, these killers. And every little thing counts. Like when you're repairing the generators and you mess up, you make a big noise, it's suddenly like, oh crap, like I either gotta run away, your heart just sinks. And that kind of tension, you can't buy it. The next title I'd have to recommend is The Ascent. It's a top-down isometric shooter that is set in kind of this cyberpunk, future dystopian world. And overall, it's a lot of fun, especially if you play through it with friends. I was really impressed with what they were able to do with the hub worlds in this game. They made them really full of life and very interesting. I wish there was more stuff to do in these kind of hub worlds in between the kind of dungeon crawl areas. But overall, a lot of fun. I was pretty impressed with the graphics of this game too. I wasn't expecting much, but the game looks gorgeous, and I love what they do with the lighting and the shadows in this game, especially. Now, this next one is kind of towing a line in terms of indie games because it was published by EA, which is like the opposite of indie, but it was made by Hazelight Studios. And Joseph Fares, the guy who is the director at Hazelight Studios, I feel like people really respect his opinions in terms of gaming. They like the products that he puts out and his passion for games, and it clearly shows in It Takes Two. I've been playing through this with my wife, and it is just Visually, it's crazy. And as you go through the game, it's kind of like they threw a bunch of games into one. Platforming, shooting, they have a bunch of mini games that you can play in between you going through the main levels. And again, I'm just fascinated by the story of this. It follows this couple who is getting a divorce, and then their daughter, basically through her sadness, casts the spell that turns them into one of her dolls that she's made, and they have to learn to work together as a couple again in order to get back into their bodies and be able to talk with their daughter again. The characters are really funny. The talking book, the freaking telescope, the robot wasp, take your pick. They're really, it's overall very entertaining, action-packed. Again, good story, highly recommend. Last but not least, we have Hades. Now, this was a title that originally released in 2020 on the Switch, and then it was brought to Game Pass last year, and everyone rejoiced because this game is awesome. And especially the developers, they were saying, wow, we're really excited to be on Game Pass because Xbox is where we got our start with our first game, which is Bastion. Now, Hades is a roguelike, and it was the first roguelike that I played. And as we all know, roguelikes can be pretty brutal, right? The whole premise is that you make your way through the dungeon, and if you die, you get sent back to the start. And that could be obviously pretty demoralizing, but in Hades, it's kind of like you want to die and go back to level up your abilities and get more of the story. You play as the son of Hades, Zagreus. So the whole game is just you making your way through the different parts of the underworlds with the help of the gods who give you their powers. You unlock different weapons, a sword, a shield, a lance, a bow and arrow, a Gatling gun, a freaking pair of gauntlets where you just go around and punch people. And they really did a great job of, no matter how many times you went through the same levels, of making it interesting. There was something different to each playthrough, whether it was the powers that you picked up along the way, or the, like I mentioned earlier, the stuff that you found out in the story. For example, at the end of the first level, you fight Megra, who is a siren, and who is trying to banish you back into the underworld in Hades' palace. And no matter, I fought her maybe like 5 or 6 times before I was able to beat her and move on, but every interaction was different. I don't think I ever saw or heard a repeat of certain dialogues within 20 playthroughs. There was always some new bit of information, new bit of character development that was to be enjoyed, no matter your playthrough. Visually, the art of this is just gorgeous, and on the Xbox Series X, it really shines with those graphical improvements that they were able to implement after porting it from the Switch. So we've talked a little bit about, in the past, Halo Infinite's struggles. They launched without campaign co-op, they launched without Forge mode, the shop was a little bit of a mess, a little bit overpriced, the battle progression system, they seem to have not really figured it out when they launched the game. And now recently, the big story is that the player count on Steam has just fallen off a cliff. It's dropped out of the top 100 games on Steam. And, that's one thing, right? Because not everyone plays Xbox on Steam, of course, so that's not the end all be all. But over on Xbox, it's fallen out of the top 5 played games. It currently is sitting at number 6 on the outside, looking in at games at Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, and Apex Legends. And that's a bit of a problem, right? If we're talking about Halo Infinite, which is supposed to be Xbox's flagship game, the game on Xbox right now. And, this is tough because like I've said previously, have been satisfied with my Halo Infinite experience, but I know not everyone is in the same boat. There is just a ton of issues for people who are playing on PC. The game allegedly crashes all the time for the PC guys playing Halo Infinite. And a lot of people say it runs like crap, it's hard to get a full 60 frames when you're playing through the campaign or multiplayer. My friends had to do some trickery where they uninstalled some high-res texture packs and things like that to get it in a state that would run, but they shouldn't have to do that, right? And I feel like if you're going to push this whole Xbox ecosystem, cloud gaming, consoles, PC, you gotta have a consistent experience for everyone, not just the people on console, but for PC as well. And that represents a huge part of the video game market, a huge part of the player base for these shooters, especially free to play. And it's concerning, right? Because we're only 2 to 3 months in to Halo Infinite's life. It's only 2 to 3 months old. And in multiplayer, there really isn't too much. I mean, there's only like 6, 7 maps, and if you're in ranked, you play the same 4 maps all the time. Recharge, Live Fire, Streets, and that other one that I always forget. You know, it gets a little bit repetitive, right? If you've put in the hours that a lot of these players have. You know, the first time I played the Fiesta event, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. The third time, I'm like, I think I've seen enough. And I think that Halo Infinite is kind of fighting an uphill battle right now, because what is popular, unfortunately, is Battle Royale. Apex Legends, Warzone, PUBG. And those games, they've lasted for a very long time. They've had a very high player base for a very long time. And that's sort of the expectation for Halo Infinite as a free-to-play shooter, right? Which is, for me, again, not that big of a deal. I've played it for 2 or 3 months, played the crap out of it, and now I'm ready to move on to a new game, right? But the expectation is that Halo Infinite is going to last 5, 6, 7, this whole generation, right? Like these other shooters have. And I don't know how they can turn that around. Hopefully they can implement more events, they can add more of that content in, but they can't take as long as they have between seasons to add all that, right? Long story short, they gotta add more maps, they gotta add more modes, bring back Griffball for God's sake. And move on to the next season already, because a lot of people, they've already maxed out their battle pass and they're just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. It's getting old. Hogwarts Legacy, when it was unveiled in 2020, immediately everyone was super hyped about it, right? It's an open world Harry Potter RPG, but it takes place before the events of the Harry Potter books as we know them. But news for this game has been pretty hard to come by, and it was supposed to come out this year, but it was rumored to be delayed all the way until 2023. Now we know that the game is not gonna come out before Fantastic Beasts 3, which is gonna come out in April. So this first quarter, we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. It's not coming out in this first quarter. But this book, The Art and Making of Hogwarts Legacy, is set to come out on September 6th. And this book is specifically a tie-in to the video game world, the events that happen in this new game. So people are suspecting, hey, when this book comes out in September, the game shouldn't be too far behind, meaning that it could come out later in September, just before the holiday season. And I feel like that would be the perfect time for this game to release. It'll give players plenty of time to play through Horizon Forbidden West, to play through Elden Ring, to finish up Dying Light 2, to play through Redfall in the summer, Crossfire that's coming out in a couple weeks. Now, Avalanche did say that they would have more news regarding this game sometime in 2022, but we haven't heard anything yet. It is pretty early in 2022. It's only, just barely 2 months in. So there's still time, so all we could do is speculate. I'm excited, hopefully it's good, hoping to live out my wizarding dreams sometime in September. Now, if you've been on the fence about buying a Series S, and you've been thinking about it, you're like, I don't really know, I want one, but I don't really know. Now is the time. Now is the time. It's the cheapest that it's ever been. It's already cheap, $300 when you compare it to other consoles, but now it's being sold for $280 on eBay right now, and it's coming bundled with Fortnite and Rocket League. But Ray, why should I care about that? Fortnite and Rocket League are free to play, but my dear viewer, here's the catch. The Rocket League and the Fortnite bundle comes with the Midnight Driver Pack. And this comes with some really awesome skins for both your Fortnite avatars and your cars in Rocket League. It comes with 1,000 V-Bucks and 1,000 Rocket League credits. Now what's cool about the Rocket League credits especially is that you can use those 1,000 credits to just get the Rocket Pass. And that's a $10 value as is, same with the V-Bucks. You're saving a little bit of money. You're spending negative money when it comes to all this stuff being bundled in. So you have to get them while supplies last. $280 for a next-gen Xbox console. That is nothing. It was already dirt cheap. I might pick it up. I have no need for it, but I might pick it up just because. And it's something I can easily pack up and travel with. I can pair it with the X screen that we talked about in last video. Put a monitor on it, and I'm good to go wherever. I can travel around the world with my Series S. Now, you've heard me talk about the Series S millions of times and millions of times. Now is the time to pick it up. It is the cheapest that it's ever been. I don't think you're gonna regret it. Even if you were like, this is an okay console, at the end of the day, you only spent like 280 bucks on it. That's nothing. Anyways, guys, that's all the news I have for today. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Ray, and I'd very much appreciate it if you went on over to Twitter and followed me at StayXboxReady. That's hands down the best way to get into contact with me if you have any questions regarding what you see on the channel, or you just want to say what's up. My giveaway is live. I have a link down in the description below with instructions on how you can win your very own Series X from me. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.